Hello, everybody. Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be doing a full battle report on a game I had in the Tier 8 Premium Japanese battleship, the Key. Now, this isn't the first time I've featured this ship. I have actually done a full deep dive analysis review of this ship previously on my channel around 3 to 4 months ago when Wargaming decided to take this ship from the premium store and add it into the armory for coal for like 145, 150,000 coal or something like that. And my initial review of this ship was that I quite like her. I think she's actually pretty good, pretty solid ship, and you really can't go wrong with picking her up, especially for that price in the armory. I kind of hope that Wargaming follows this trend of taking older ships from the premium store and slowly moving them on over to coal into the armory for essentially free or just for playing the game. I think it's a great strategy. It's a great thing to do to allow the ships that are kind of held behind these paywalls in order to have access to them for everyone in order to get them and play them as well. I think it's a great strategy. It does kind of suck though that we haven't gotten a new coal ship in quite some time. But again, I can 100% get behind the idea of taking these older premium ships and putting them into the armory so that everybody can enjoy these ships and get these ships instead of spending, doubloons and or your real hard-earned money for them. And just because they're moving them on over doesn't mean these ships are dead or anything. Like obviously this is a kind of game when you have these free to play, freemium model games, you're gonna have power creep inevitably. It's just going to happen. And I think that the just because they're older ships doesn't mean necessarily make them bad ships anymore. So obviously, Wargaming wants to sell the newer ships with a boatload of gimmicks, a bunch of new stuff going for them, probably stronger ships because they look more appealing to that of the customer. But like I've said already twice this video, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad ships like these older ships, right? So, and that's what I found with the key. I mean, I think a key I obtained this via Santa Crates years ago. Um, and I really, I probably played her a fair amount when I first got her, but then I really kind of just laid her to rest. I really never played her again just because there's so many damn ships. I have like over 600 damn ships in my port, which is crazy. So, obviously it's going to be inevitable with ships like this. You're just gonna, forget to play them or forget you have them. And the key was no exception for that. And then finally, when Wargaming announced the ship going back into the armory, it encouraged me to go pick this thing up and play her again. Obviously, make some content over. And again, I was pretty damn happy. I forgot actually how good this ship is, at least in my opinion. Now, when the key originally came out, I think the key, I don't know if it was the first ship, but you could viably make a secondary build with this ship. Do I still recommend that? Probably not. You saw from my commander build, I just run like a standard tank build, standard battleship build on this ship. But you can 100% get behind a secondary build if you need to. I believe your secondary DPM is like 344,000 with your actual hitting DPM around just shy of 60,000 damage, which actually isn't that bad because I believe the ship is coated in those 100mm dual purpose guns. So that also means that the AA on the key isn't too shabby either, from what I found. Now, if you're looking at bouncing commanders, and if you pick the ship up and you're not like, crazy like me and how I have a dedicated commander pretty much to all my vessels, I always start and retrain them from level 10 and try to get them all the way up. That's just how I play the game. You don't definitely shouldn't or you don't have to do that by any means. Um, a really good commander that transfers over incredibly well to this ship is like the Awami, especially if you have a secondary build on the Awami. It transfers pretty damn good over to this ship. And a good way to look at this ship is kind of like a one tier lower Awami if you're playing it for the secondary build. That's kind of how I thought about her, or thought about playing her and all that. But the way I have her set up and what she actually kind of plays more like because of the way I have her built is more like a Amagi. It's kind of a side grade to the Amagi, which I'm actually a big fan of the Amagi. I don't mind it because I think the Amagi is a ship that kind of gets lost in being just solid. You know, it's a ship that really doesn't have any flashy gimmicks or anything like that because it's an older ship and it just relies purely on its armor scheme and its ability to dish out a lot of pain on its broadside by its five, I think it's, is it 410 millimeter guns, which I love. I love those kind of solid, simplistic play styles. I find them incredibly fun. I don't need the flashy gimmicks, the meta defining ships. Just not who I am as a person who plays this game. I know a lot of players, they have to play the latest and the greatest, and that's just them. It's definitely not me. I kind of appreciate a harder, more of a challenging play style to this game, just because I feel like sometimes, like for example, if I go on the Libertad, I just feel like disgusting, or a Legmod Colombo, I just feel kind of disgusting, and I try not to play those ships a lot. Actually, I can't even remember the last time I've played a Colombo, honestly, just because of the current state of that ship and how it is. So. But not to get too far off topic here, really enough talking about the key, kind of just talking more about the battle in the background. No, this is one of those games where you find yourself in a top tier matchup, you know, and kind of the stars align in this one. I think me and my division mate here played relatively good. I wouldn't say it's anything too flashy or anything phenomenal. It's just a solid, you know, meat and potatoes, bring your lunch pail to work kind of game. You know, it just happened to turn out to be a phenomenal result, which again, for a tier 8 battleship, you know, if you're pushing, you know, over the 200,000 damage mark, I would say that's a pretty damn solid result. Maybe even slightly above average, just because of what you can do, right? And one thing I try to stress on my channel when it comes to battleship gameplay, and again, there are some exceptions like the Champagne over here, but still, for the vast majority, I'd say for 90-95% of the battleships in this game, yes, obviously your main role is to eliminate enemy surface ships with your main battery fire, but also there is the forgotten, unrewarded portion of a battleship gameplay, which is tanking damage for your team. I cannot stress this enough, that you have the HP, you have the armor, and you 100% should be up there giving some of that away to the enemy. Obviously, they have to work for it, but giving some of that, allowing the enemy to take some of that, so that it takes the fire off of your more, let's say, impactful, you know, ships, game impactful ships. You know, like, I mean, I don't want to say it, but I'll just do it at this tier, for example, like the Baltimore with its radar ability and its 203s, right? Some other ships, like basically pretty much any of your DDs, that sort of stuff. Just ships that have a little bit higher carry potential, are ships that you want to be supplementing your HP with, just because you want to make sure that they live longer and have HP towards the end of the game, so that they can help utilize that and trade that effectively with the enemy for whoever they are fighting, right? So, and that's something I've said for, I mean, I can't say years because I haven't been around for even a year yet. I think coming up in December is when I actually started my YouTube channel. But it's something that I've tried to stress a little bit when reviewing battleships and going down the lines of certain ships and whatnot, is you definitely want to be doing that. Obviously, there, like I said, already mentioned, there are some exceptions, like the Champagne that just has crucial levels of armor. Obviously, the Slava to some degree, though your armor is still pretty solid. And the one thing I find hysterical too is that even when Wargaming says a battleship doesn't have good armor, the armor's not good, blah blah and so and so. I mean, at the end of the day, if you still angle it effectively, you could still mitigate a lot of damage, right? A lot of damage. Like the Incomparable is a prime example of that, based upon its armor scheme. Like I wouldn't say the armor's phenomenal, but it's definitely not non-existent. I mean, you can 100% make that armor work, and it can even be trolly at times. I've really never had an issue with it. I just think if you go nose in or go flat broadside, like, yeah, you're probably going to be punished. But again, the way Wargaming designs battleships nowadays, I mean, I really don't think armor is that much of a weakness for any battleship. Like, I think the latest example that I could, you know, think of would be like the Irresistible. Like, yes, the Irresistible has a massive citadel and can be punished, but again, if you angle that ship right and you you know, position it accordingly and correctly, you're not going to take citadels. You're going to be relatively tanky and be able to shrug off a lot of incoming damage. Okay, and not to mention your crawling smoke screen, which is just kind of an interesting choice. Let's just be honest with that, right? On a tier 10 battleship, more long range HE spam griefing, which is again is not fun. But yeah, the key. So, like I said, I build this thing for just a standard battleship build, and I try to play it like your standard battleship. I don't do anything too flashy, just sending shells down range every 30 seconds or so. And again, another thing you do have on the key, I think you have these 10-kilometer torpedoes that are the aft-mounted torpedoes. You have a launcher of 3 per broadside. Some people forget about that the ship does actually have torpedoes, and by no means I would consider these torpedoes brawling torpedoes. They're most certainly not. Like, yes, they go 10 kilometers. And yes, if you have a secondary build, I understand the thought process here. But for me, these torpedoes are more so, which again, I didn't really have an example of doing that this game, is if you are in the pre-kited position, you can launch these torpedoes kind of in the general direction of the push and hopefully get someone to run into those. It's also a good mitigation tactic too from, I know, like other, more brawling oriented battleships like your Tirpitz, for example, that has torpedoes, just to name one. It can definitely be like a mitigation tactic too, and if they're gonna want to rush into you with their torpedoes, that they're also gonna have to be aware that you have torpedoes of your own, and you guys could effectively trade. So that push will be in vain essentially for the incoming battleship, right? Last thing to talk about the key is the dispersion of the key. It's nothing impressive. I think it's a sigma of 1.7 with your standard battleship dispersions, especially when it comes to Japanese. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your horizontal dispersion is good, but your vertical is not the best. So, or is it the opposite? I can't remember exactly what it is for the Japanese. It's a problem they have throughout the entire line and all their ships as well. Like, they have, and they pride themselves on having good accuracy, but one of the two dispersion, I guess, what do you call that, numbers, is actually not that good, but the other one is actually being pretty solid. But yeah, that's just a problem that the Japanese have had since the beginning of this game, right? Obviously, my division mate had no torpedoes, so I don't really understand what he's doing here. Classic from him. I'm not gonna lie, I was busting a gut after seeing that. I think he was just coming in to slow down, maybe for a kiss. I'm like, you might as well have just have rammed the guy if you didn't have your torpedoes up. So there's a good example of your Japanese torpedoes and the secondaries putting in work on a more known secondary battleship as the Bismarck. Again, I've done a full down the line review of the German line going down to the Preußen, so you understand and should know where I stand with those ships being secondary brawlers nowadays. I believe they're more of hybrid secondary brawlers, or just build them for a standard battleship to their main battery, because you're going to get more out of them nowadays than being that massive floating eyesore line that doesn't have the best maneuverability and really can't get away with much, as you're just so big that the enemies really are going to be able to hit you. So, but yeah, to kind of wrap up this video here in regards of the battle, as you can see, we're at 174,000 damage, already 4 kills, and the last enemy ship alive is the enemy Piggy. So we're gonna go and endure AA strike after AA strike, and hopefully be able to pound him with our 10 410 millimeter guns. Of course, like I said, I did mention that the AA is quite good. As you can see, I mean, it is an equal tier aircraft carrier, and we are still shooting down around 3, maybe 4 planes per squadron, which isn't bad. Of course, that kind of gets thrown out when the skip bombers come into play, because the skip bombers can start their runs outside of your AA aura, which is rather frustrating, but whatever, understandable. I guess the way they designed it. That's why at least to me, it seems like every aircraft carrier nowadays either has skip bombers on them or tactical squadrons, because they want to make aircraft carrier gameplay kind of a little easier for some reason. I don't really understand it. But whatever, such is life. I don't really dabble too much in CVs, though I do have every tier 10 aircraft carrier in the game. I've paid my dues, and I've played them, so I kind of understand a little bit about what I'm talking about when it comes to them. But again, good example of the AA on the enemy aircraft carrier here as well. Of course, we're just soaking up some torpedoes. Surprisingly, torpedo protection isn't that bad. I believe you're in the mid to high 20s, maybe 22, 27, around that range. So not terrible. But again, nothing like what Japanese battleships should be known for. As I think this is more in line with like a battle cruiser, kind of along the lines like of the Amagi and whatnot, right? Like this was like the predecessor to that. So, And that wraps up the game here with 196,000 damage and a Kraken game, which again was nice. And I figured, hey, fuck it, I should show you guys this game. Going to the post-battle screen here, we come in with 196,000 damage. I believe this was an E-rank game. Not that that really matters. 4 citadels, 75 shell hits, 2 torpedo hits with 23 aircraft shot down. All in all, I think it was a pretty solid game. Kind of trying to highlight the overall ability of the key and why I think this is kind of a little bit of a dark horse of a ship. And I definitely think if you don't have this ship for Cole, 100% you should be picking the ship up for Cole, guys. So anyways, thank you for watching for today's video. Stay tuned for more, and I will catch you all in the next video. You all have a good one and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.